this is the exact model. This is 5'8" super ultralight, and this is the tubular version. This is the butt section of the rod. I don't like the shape of this butt section. It just doesn't look performance to me. I don't know what performance should look like, but this definitely is not what performance looks like. I don't know if the shape has any other purpose. If you know what the purpose of this shape is, let me know in the comments. To me, it just looks stupid, to be honest with you. But whatever, at least I don't touch it, I don't use it. It provides some good counterweight. And yeah, it's just aesthetics. And then we have the other piece of wood on the rod. And I had actually problems with this cork here. You can see it was sanded over here. You can see where I sanded it. And the reason for sanding was it was flaring up over here. So in other words, the diameter over here was larger than the diameter over here on the front. It was kind of like this, but not flared up so much. Less. You can see that on the picture on their website. Now, this probably does have ergonomic purpose. Maybe when you're lifting the rod, you use this extra, surface here in the handle for leverage to lift. I don't know, probably does have, but this, even if it does have a purpose, it can only work in small Japanese hands. These huge paws, this just couldn't work. I sanded this off before I had fished the rod. I mean, 30 minutes after I opened the box, I already sanded it. I was 100% sure I cannot hold it like this. Because for me, look how small the handle is. You grab it like this, and then this edge here was cutting into my palm. I could not even hold it. I had to sand it down. And now it's pretty comfy the way it is right now. I do feel it. I do feel it when I lift the fish. I feel the cork in my palm, but before there was an edge here. I don't know. I see that edge, by the way, in several other very expensive rods. It's kind of flaring up here. So I assume there is ergonomic, purpose, but it just didn't work for me. Then more bling here. This bling is, I cannot get, the more light I put on the rod, the more my phone just turns down the exposure, and I cannot get it to, it looks much better to my eyes than it does on camera. But this surface here and this surface on the front is very shiny, and as you move the rod on the sunlight, as if you fish in a bright day, it's really pretty. Japanese rods are usually not that blingy, and this is a little piece of bling, and I'm not into the bling, but I kind of like this. It looks kind of fancy without being, distasteful, especially with the complex XR, which is also a little bit shiny. I mean, this is a gorgeous looking combo. But what else? Normal stuff here for grabbing the reel. After the first guide, this blingy surface goes all the way to the first guide, and the rod has this titanium frame with torzite inserts guides, which to me are the best looking guides, and performance wise they're probably second best. I think only the AGS guides are harder than them because they are just carbon, but they don't look as nice. But anyway, 9 out of 10 high-end JDM rods will have these exact guides. These are exactly the same guides as on the Abu Garcia Eradicator and the Carabus Extreme and a bunch of other rods, like I said. Even the St. Croix Legend Elite has exactly the same guides. This is the connection here. This is the connection. I will just show you quickly the rest of the rod, and then I'm gonna talk more about the performance of the rod on the water. Very thin, the guides are really micro. Okay, if this is your first rod with micro guides are not just small guides. These are micro guides. They're exactly the same size as on the Abu Garcia Eradicator. I'm really zoomed in here. They look reasonable, but they're not reasonable. You're not going to get any kind of knots run through these guides. Okay folks, I'm gonna try to give you some nicer scenery for the second half of the video. The next thing I'm gonna talk about is the power of the rod. Now initially in the first videos where I talked about the rod, I said it's pretty stiff. But I was half right. Only the tip is stiff. Now that I put the rod on the wall and did proper comparisons with other rods, I can tell you that this rod is actually significantly softer than my St. Croix Legend Elite Panfish, which is, in my opinion, a true ultralight rod. But if you look on the wall, this rod starts to bend a lot earlier, starts to bend with the same weight. I mean, they deflect, the two rods split the blanks very early. All the way here, this blank already starts to bend. I mean, just look at this. I mean, it bends very early. So in hindsight, I don't know how to exactly rate this rod because it does feel stiffer than my, Abu Garcia Eradicator. But the blank in the first half is not much stiffer. Only the tip is a little bit stiffer. So I guess the power of the rod is somewhere between an ultralight and a super ultralight. Okay, with respect to sensitivity, folks, bite, so many bites, but they're very little. So many bites. Wow, that one just pulled. See? Look. Look at what you can feel. But to be honest with you, this bluegill bit pretty strong. With respect to sensitivity, folks, I mean, it's a 99.9% carbon blank. It's a tubular tip, not a solid tip. And it's kind of a stiffer tubular tip too. Then you have guides with titanium frame and torzite inserts. The whole rod weighs 50 grams. I mean, what do you expect, honestly, the sensitivity to be? I mean, all of these 99.9 gram blanks, they use most of them the same guides, and they're all going to be just amazingly sensitive, folks. And this one, on top of everything, like I said, the tip is a little bit stiffer, which, soft tip absorbs vibration. So, I mean, there is nothing to absorb vibration or to kill sensitivity in this rig here. So yeah, the rod is amazingly sensitive. I don't want to go into, any more than that. I don't want to compare the rods. The Eradicator is amazingly sensitive. This one is amazingly sensitive. They're all amazingly sensitive. And I mean, all other rods, I don't want to say it's spectacular or better than the rest of them. All of the other JDM rods with this kind of blank and these guides will be the same. I will say though, fighting the fish feels different than the Eradicator, because when you fight the fish with the Eradicator kind of absorbs absorbs the fish, and this one not so much. It does, but kind of does the whole blank, not only the tip. So you do feel more action when you fight the fish. I'm not saying this is even good or bad. Maybe you don't want to feel action. Even I don't know if I prefer this. I'm just saying that it does feel different fighting the fish with this rod compared to the Eradicator. With respect to casting, folks, the blank is incredible and will catapult a lure a long way. But because the tip is stiffer than what you're used to, you're gonna need a heavier lure than what you're used to. I don't know what it says here, but I'm sure I'm not gonna agree with it. It says from 0.6 to 3.5 grams. I would say from 1 gram to 3.5 grams. If I'm gonna fish something lighter than 1 gram, I'm gonna use the Eradicator for sure. But I'm gonna switch the lure in a little bit because I wanna catch one nicer fish for the outro. And if you load this blank with, I don't know, something like a Kitech 2-inch lure with some 1.5 gram jig head, boy, you're not gonna believe where you're gonna fling it with 5'8" rod. I mean, it catapults and it just, it catapults and slings it out. The blank does it. You don't need to do it with your own wrist. By the way, if everything else is the same and both blanks are roded optimally and you have a fast action rod and slow action rod, which one do you think will cast farther? Answer is the slow action rod will cast farther. It's a little bit counterintuitive because slow sounds slow and negative, but when you have a slow action rod, the entire blank casts. When you have a fast action rod, the tip does not. Mostly you're either gonna cast with the first half of the rod or the second half of the rod, but not with both. It's just not possible because the tip is much softer than the first half of the blank. And with these slow action blanks, that's the magic of these slow action blanks. Once you load them properly, and this is why I love them, once you load them properly, then you fight the fish with the whole blank, if you're fighting a fish, not fighting a fish just with the tip. And when you're casting, once you load it, you're casting with the whole blank. At least for me, that's the reason why I prefer slow action over fast action rods. There we go. All right, folks, I'm gonna end the video with this fish. I'm not gonna catch anything bigger, and this guy is not big either, but look at the, I don't know what's the good angle. Look at the curve of the rod. I am gonna keep this rod and I love this rod, but this is the reason I love the rod. Because of the absolutely parabolic bend curve. It's not because of the weight, it's not because of the sensitivity. I think all of these $300 JDM rods are super light and super sensitive, and they look very similar. The only differentiation is, I think, this bend curve. It is, I love it. It lets you cast very far. Once you put a good weight, it lets you fight the fish. Look at this. It lets you fight the fish with the whole rod, not just with the tip. This is why I don't like these solid tip rods. You're fighting the fish only with the tip. So yeah, I love the rod just because of this super parabolic bend. So I'm not gonna be selling this rod. I'm gonna keep this rod. Yeah, it cannot cast jigs under 1 gram. It can cast them, and you can cast them with much heavier rod than this, but it's not designed to cast under 1 gram jigs. Definitely a better bass, even though he's too small. But it can do other things that my other ultralight and super ultralight rods cannot do. For example, if I want to cast this guy here, which is like a 2-gram jig head with a little heavier body, the tip of the eradicator gets overloaded, okay? If you want to do drop shot for perch, which is still ultralight fishing, but you have a 3/16 drop shot sinker on the bottom, and you try to hop it like this, I mean, you cannot hop it with the eradicator because when you lift it to hop it, the tip flexes. So you end up kind of dragging it instead of hopping it. So every time you work with weights more than 1.5 grams, total weight, lure and the jig head, the tip of the eradicator gets loaded. And don't get me wrong, I'm not holding this against the eradicator, because the eradicator is a proper super ultralight rod, so it shouldn't be able to handle these heavy weights. But for me, now I have a kind of super ultralight rod. I told you it's not really ultralight, but it can still handle like drop shotting applications or casting heavier stuff. The only thing I'm gonna change is this 2-pound Varivas lines is kind of a mismatch for the rod. I'm gonna put 2.5-pound line, but not Varivas, from a different brand. So I get some more extra strength and I can really lean into this fish and I can compress the blank to its full potential, and I'm gonna have some fun with this rod. But yeah, that's the end of this video, folks. Thanks to everybody who watched all the way to the end. I really appreciate it, guys. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.